They told him it couldn't be done. A B-25 bomber turned into a flying gunship, a single aircraft carving through enemy convoys like a storm across the Pacific. Engineers dismissed the idea as dangerous, unstable, impossible, they said. But 3 days later, the impossible became fear. As one American pilot flying a modified B-25 packed with heavy guns tore apart 12 Japanese ships in one of the most shocking rampages of the Pacific War. This is the story they never expected to come true. The Pacific Ocean in 1943 was a battlefield stretched across thousands of miles. Islands, reefs, jungles. An endless water created a war zone where supply ships were lifelines and ambushes were constant. Japan depended on convoys to survive. Oil, food, ammunition. Without these ships, the Imperial Navy starved. The Allies knew this. And one pilot, a stubborn, fearless, relentless airman, believed he could strike at the heart of Japan's supply lines with a weapon no one had ever imagined. A B-25 Mitchell gunship redesigned to hunt ships at point-blank range. But when he first proposed it, heads shook across the room. The B-25 was already a legend. Fast, durable, versatile. It had bombed Tokyo in the Diddle Raid. It had helped the Allies across Africa, Europe, and the Pacific. But it wasn't designed to be a ship-killing monster. This pilot, Major Raymond Ray Wilkins, was convinced otherwise. He believed a B-25 could become a SEAL predator, flying low, striking hard, and escaping before the enemy even knew what hit them. His idea: strip unnecessary weight, strengthen the nose, install a cluster of heavy guns, add side-firing weapons, rewire the aircraft for continuous fire, train his men for dangerously low-altitude attacks. To him, it made perfect sense. To the engineers, it sounded like a death wish. One engineer looked at the plans, then at Wilkins, and said quietly, "Major, if you fly this thing the way you're describing, you won't be coming back." Wilkins simply replied, "I'm not planning on coming back. I'm planning on winning." It's the birth of a gunship. In dusty workshops across New Guinea, air mechanics turned wrenches, welded metal, and tested wiring until sparks filled the air. What emerged from those makeshift hangars did not look like a bomber anymore. It looked like a beast. The modified B-25 had 850 caliber machine guns lined in the nose. For more mounted on the sides, additional waist guns, armor plating, a reinforced frame for low-level flight. It was aggressive, intimidating, and built for one thing: tearing enemy ships apart. When test pilots first walked around it, they whispered, "This thing shouldn't exist." But Wilkins climbed into the cockpit, checked the controls, and smiled. "Let's go hunting." Flying a B-25 at sea level wasn't just risky, it was insane. At high speed, one wrong move meant skimming the ocean, hitting debris, or getting torn apart by ship gunners. Wilkins trained his crews personally. He told them, "If you fly above 30 feet, you're dead. Get lower." He practiced attacking wooden targets on beaches, strafing abandoned barges, flying through valleys at treetop height, performing skip bombing runs using low-altitude bombs that skip across the water like stones. Every day their confidence grew. Every day the aircraft felt less like a machine, and more like a companion, a predator waiting to be unleashed. Japan prepares a convoy. In late 1943, Japan prepared a major convoy to resupply its desperate forces in the Solomon Islands. Troop transports, tankers, anti-aircraft escorts, 12 ships in total, lined up in formation. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to slip through the night and reinforce the front lines, but Allied intelligence intercepted their route. Wilkins heard the report and stepped forward. "Give it to us." His squadron prepared for takeoff. Mechanics loaded ammunition belts. Armorers locked in bombs. Pilots checked their instruments one last time. The gunships were ready. So was Wilkins. The morning was gray, the ocean calm, a deceptive quiet. As the modified B-25s raced toward the horizon, the crews felt the tension in their chests. Every man knew this mission could define the rest of the war. From above, the Japanese convoy appeared like small dots scattered on the water. But Wilkins wasn't interested in staying above. He pushed the throttle forward and dove. Take it down low. Hunt them. The B-25 dropped to 15 feet above the water, so low that the propellers sent waves rippling behind it. The Japanese gunners were stunned. They expected bombers from altitude. They never imagined a gunship charging straight at them like a steel hurricane. The first strike. Wilkins lined up his nose guns. A stream of 50 caliber rounds tore across the water, slamming into the side of the first ship. Metal burst. Wood splintered. Gun crews ducked and fell as the B-25 ripped past them like lightning. Behind him, other B-25s struck from both sides. One ship caught fire instantly. Another lost its crew on deck. A third attempted to turn, but turning became its final mistake. Wilkins circled around, preparing for a second run. Bombs dropped from low altitude, skipping across the water before smashing into holes. By the end of the attack, several ships were burning, drifting, or sinking. But this was only the beginning. The next day, the Japanese convoy tried to regroup. They changed course, increased speed, and prepared for new attacks. But Wilkins was already in the air. He scanned the water below and saw the smoke of injured vessels straggling behind the formation. "Finish the wounded first," he said. His B-25 dove again. Machine gun fire stitched across the decks. Bombs crushed through hulls. The ocean erupted in pillars of spray and fire. By midday, 4 more ships had been destroyed. The Japanese escorts fired desperately, but the speed and low altitude of the gunships made them almost impossible to hit. One crewman later said, "It felt like we were fighting ghosts." The last remaining Japanese ships pushed through the night, engines straining, hoping to outrun the American gunships. But the next morning, the sea betrayed them. A thin line of smoke on the horizon told Wilkins everything he needed. He spoke calmly into the radio. "Gentlemen, this is the last of them. Let's finish what we started." The final attack was the most vicious. The B-25s charged in formation, guns blazing. Japanese sailors scrambled, shouting orders that dripped with panic. One transport ship tried to beach itself on a small island, but Wilkins caught it before it reached safety. He dropped low, so low that spray hit the windshield and unleashed everything. The aircraft head. The vessel erupted in flames. Another ship tried to hide behind a destroyer, but the coordinated strafing runs shredded both. In the end, surrounded by oil, fires, and sinking hulls, the final transport slipped underwater. Silence fell over the ocean. In 3 days, the convoy that Japan relied on was gone. The aftermath, shock across the Pacific. When the reports reached military headquarters, officers read them twice to be sure. 12 Japanese ships, 3 days, 1 squadron of modified B-25 gunships. Engineers who once dismissed the idea were now speechless. Commanders realized they had a new weapon in the war. And the men who flew those missions, brave, coordinated, disciplined, proved that innovation didn't always come from laboratories. Sometimes it came from the courage to disobey fear. Wilkins didn't seek fame. He didn't care about decorations. To him, the mission mattered more than the man. But history remembers. He turned an impossible machine into a ship-killing monster. He proved that low-level gunship attacks could change the Pacific War. He saved thousands of Allied lives by starving Japan's supply lines. His legacy is written not in medals, but in the stories of the men who flew beside him. One crewman later said, "He didn't just command the plane. He commanded the sky." As the sun sets over the Pacific today, the ocean hides the rusting bones of that convoy, silent witnesses to a pilot's impossible vision. A vision that became reality, a reality that became legend. The engineers were wrong. The impossible flew, and in 3 days, it sank 12 ships.